Hey friends, welcome back to the show and welcome to 2026. If you have not been formally welcomed into this new year, according to the Gregorian calendar anyway, we are in a new year and I am starting off the year with this solo episode, the next two really solo episodes, to kind of dive into the energy of this new year that we're stepping into, the energy that we're leaving in 2025, also known as the year of the snake, and stepping into in 2026, which is the year of the horse. Now, this is actually really timely. So even though you're hearing this episode after, obviously it's not January 1st or 2nd, right? It's after the new year started. It's after the new year started according to the Gregorian calendar. The year of the horse, I'm going to talk about that here in a second. This is according to, we're looking at like the Chinese New Year, where we have the year, like last year was the year of the snake, moving into the year of the horse. And that doesn't start until February 17th. That's the beginning of the Chinese New Year. And so that is what I want to talk about today. I know we can go down rabbit holes of when the actual new year starts, and according to cyclical history, right? It's really when spring is when the new year starts. But for our purposes here, I want to talk about kind of the energetics around what we're leaving, what we're stepping into. And I want to tie this into your human design and tie this into your undefined centers and the energy leaks that can show up and the energetic patterns that have been draining your body and what that looked like in the previous year, the year of the snake, what it can and will look like moving into the energy of the year of the horse. This idea of pushing and kind of grinding into the new year where it's, grab the new year by the whatever. And this is like this energy. Like I want to leave that behind. And this is something we can leave behind in the year of the snake, which I'll talk about. But I want this to be about understanding what your body has been doing and telling you all along, like understanding this real energetic threshold, this threshold that we're at right now to embody the year of the horse. The year of the snake, 2025, up until technically February 17th of this year. This is kind of this quiet, inward, deeply instinctual type of energy. So this is the year of shedding old skins. Think of a snake, right? That sheds its skin. This energy of releasing identities that no longer fit, of this deep inner work that maybe no one else could see, and kind of figuring out discerning what is this identity that no longer fits. Like maybe it's been more of a realization for you. This is kind of this subtle underground work. That's kind of the energy. And it was more of a feeling and observing and listening and clearing. So it's required a slowing down. It required a letting go of habits that maybe once served you or kept you safe. And it required you becoming aware of where you were still operating from survival. And for a lot of women, high achieving women, intuitive women, this year might have felt heavy and tiring and exhausting and probably uncomfortable on multiple levels for this reason. This shedding that I'm talking about is not typically a comfortable thing. It's not an easy thing. It requires a discomfort. It requires a really deep conversation with yourself, like this come to Jesus meeting with yourself to understand, okay, what's no longer serving me? What can I no longer carry with me into this next iteration of myself, into this next version of myself? And it's all of these things are happening internal. Now, when we're moving into this next year, the year of the horse, 2026, starting February 17th, this is kind of this exhale. So we've kind of been in this inhale for 2025 and moving into this really bold exhale. So this is where the energy shifts, because the energy of the horse, think about a literal horse. A horse moves. It's about momentum and confidence and freedom and this action rooted in clarity where you've let go and you've shed these things that you know no longer serve you and no longer can be a part of this next iteration of you. Now you can take that with you and build a momentum. Now you can make the moves. It's about movement. It's about moving forward. So there's no overthinking required. There's no overanalyzing, overthinking. That's not what the horse does. The inner work has already been done. The figuring out has already been done. This is now about living what you already know. It's this year of embodiment. That's been, I know it's such a buzzword, and I honestly hesitate to even use that word, but it's been a big word coming up. I've been kind of contemplating the word for the year, my word for the year, and I've come up with a few. I'll probably narrow it down to two. But that word embodiment, that's been coming up for me. And that's really what this year is about. It's about living what you already know. I've shed the things that no longer serve me. I've discovered a lot of things that no longer serve me. And yes, there is going to be this continued shedding as you continue to make the moves, but it's no longer about this kind of deep, quiet stillness. Not saying you can't bring stillness into this year, but a lot of times I think this inner work, it requires, like, we have to just be still and listen before we can make moves. But now it's like, okay, you've done the work. We can continue to do that inner work, but you can also, now it's time to make the moves. Like, we're not waiting until XYZ to make the moves. Now we're making the moves. That's the conversation I want to bring into this episode today. And I want to look at this from a human design perspective, to look at where the patterns that maybe you have been shedding this past year in 2025, maybe there's a continual shedding, and maybe there's residual shedding that's going to happen over the next, over the course of this year, but probably for the next few months as we're kind of easing into this year of the horse. And specifically in your undefined centers, that's where I want to focus today. So you can really stop carrying what was really only meant to be temporary, the things that were just keeping you safe at the time. And I'm bringing the conversation into undefined centers because these are such huge opportunities for growth for us. So let me start there talking about, I just want you to understand undefined centers and kind of this, like, set the stage for what we're talking about here. I think sometimes when we talk about human design and we hear about undefined centers, there's a lot of language around undefined centers that can make us feel like these are weaknesses. Like, these are areas where we already have this kind of inherent weakness within us. And it's just not true. First of all, there are no good or bad parts of your human design. It just is. The way you were divinely designed just is. There's no good, there's no bad, it just is. So to see undefined centers as weakness is just not accurate. Now, are there more challenges for these centers? Probably. That's really where some of your most challenging lessons are going to be found, but it's not a weakness. These are areas where you've just learned to survive, you've been conditioned, and it's just opportunities for growth. So these undefined centers that we have, these are actually really adaptive, and it's where we learn to adapt. But the problem is, with high achieving women, with high performing women, they don't necessarily adapt. They start overfunctioning. So rather than adapting, they just overfunction to try to outdo the conditioning that they're recognizing is within them. So they're amplifying what's around them rather than tuning in and kind of sorting through what's mine and what's somebody else's, and they just start overfunctioning. So here are a few keys to understanding this about this adaptation, and where adaptation turns to overfunctioning. Adaptation without safety becomes overfunctioning. So when there's not safety involved, when we're not doing the work for our nervous system, when we're not having real conversations with ourselves, when this deconditioning process is happening, when we're learning how to function and work with our undefined centers, knowing that there's going to be a lot of uncomfortable things involved. I think this is a key piece we miss sometimes. Like, we just want to go head first into the deconditioning and the adapting and learning how to work with these without recognizing, like, a lot of times this is really hard work. This is really uncomfortable. This is really, like, there's going to be a lot of resistance. And we don't have those real conversations with ourselves. There's no safety, and it ends up being this complete shock to our nervous system, and we can't function or we can't handle it. So it either we throw up our hands and it's like, oh, well, this just is how I am. And we just forget about, like, learn the lessons and the learning and the growth that's available, or it becomes the overfunctioning, where now we're pushing and pushing and pushing and using up that energy from that particular center. Too much energy in that center, too much forcing, pushing, forcing things to happen, right? And then when we're doing this, when we're having this adaptation is happening without the safety, now we're overfunctioning, this is where a depletion happens, right? So this is where it starts to show up in our physical body. And this is kind of the progression of how, when we're out of alignment with our human design, it shows up in the physical body. This is how it happens so often. And the undefined centers are a huge. This is the main place where I look when I'm looking at labs and I'm comparing it to what I'm seeing in my clients. I'm always looking at the undefined centers to see, where are we overfunctioning? Where are we pushing and forcing? Where are we out of alignment with the energy from this particular sentence from this particular center? So if we're not adapting, we're overfunctioning, and we're compensating. And then we start to carry things that aren't ours to begin with. And now it's amplified. And now we're identifying with what isn't ours to carry, what wasn't ours to begin with. So we're carrying all these things that aren't ours. And now it's in our energy body. And this is just a lot of energy to carry, a lot of weight to carry, and a lot of unnecessary struggle that we're carrying. This is how it shows up in the body. So your body is going to reorganize itself around these survival strategies, and your physical body, your minerals, your hormones, that's going to pay the price. So let's look at the centers individually to see what this looks like. So when I go through each of these, I want to look at the energetic patterns that show up in these undefined centers. So if you don't know your undefined centers by heart, I recommend you go grab your chart so you can look at these. You can follow along. And if you are someone who likes to analyze other people's charts in your family or your team or whatever, this is a great thing to understand about other people as well. So I'm going to go through the centers and talk about the energetic patterns, some kind of real life examples, how this might show up, and then how the minerals tie in and what this looks like in the body. So let's start with the root center, the undefined root. This is a pressure center. And this is where we fall into the pressure trap. And I'll use myself as an example in some of these that are my undefined centers. I have this one undefined. And this has been a massive area of learning and growth for me. So the center here, or the patterns here that show up in this center, are kind of these feelings of urgency, feeling like you're always behind, just chronic urgency, even when nothing is wrong or nothing is urgent, but you're just feeling like you're behind, this chronic state of feeling like I have to keep going. Rest feels unsafe unless everything is done. So the rest or the slowing down, it's something that either you feel like you have to earn or you just have to get all the things because the pressure is I've got to get all these things done before I can rest, before I can slow down. And I think sometimes it with people with this center, it doesn't necessarily show up or feel like guilt. It just doesn't feel safe. Yes, sometimes it does feel like it needs to be earned, but it's just more of a pressure of this pressure. That's what it feels like. So it may not be a guilt. It might be a guilt thing for you, and there's other centers to look at for that. But I want to say that out loud because sometimes when I'm talking to clients about this center, I ask a million questions in this kind of energetic mapping intake form that I give my clients. And sometimes, and I have some questions on there about, guilt around resting, that kind of thing. And a lot of times they'll answer like, no, I don't feel guilty about resting. I know resting is required. Like I know it's necessary. I know it, blah, blah, blah. But it's this though. It's this urgency pattern, and this pattern it doesn't feel safe. I got to knock these things out. I got to cross these things off. It's just the pressure. That's what it is. So how this might look in real life, you might be relaxing mentally or relaxing. So how this looks in real life, for example, maybe you're relaxing, quote unquote, relaxing, but mentally you're making your to-do lists. Physically, your body is relaxing. Oh yeah, I'm sitting here, I'm relaxing. Mentally, your mind is do, right? It doesn't stop. It's making your to-do list. It's telling you what you have to do next. That this is an example of that pressure. Other example, saying once this launch is over, once this kid phase is over, once this quarter is over, once this stage in life is over, once XYZ is over, then I'll breathe, then I'll rest, then I'll do this, and this. This is pressure. The other thing is needing the pressure to function. This one is very sneaky, but if you're someone who needs the pressure, like you need the procrastination, you wait to the last minute because I function better under pressure. You hear that? You've probably said that before. You've heard that before. I function better under pressure. This is nothing to brag about. This is really not a good thing because your body, what you're telling your body, what you have trained your body to believe is that I have to have the pressure to function to do the thing. This is not good. So your hormones and your adrenals are like, because you're waiting until the last minute, there's pressure, there's a deadline, but you're telling yourself that's how I have to do it. No, that's not how you have to do it. This is that overfunctioning pattern, right, of the undefined root center. How this shows up in the physical body. Magnesium, sodium, potassium, 3 of those big electrolytes are 100% going to take the hit on this because your root center is tied to your adrenals. You're asking your adrenals to just constantly churn out the cortisol, push it out, I got to keep going. So those minerals are going to take the hit. This is going to lead to muscle tension, body tension, anxiety, poor sleep, adrenal stress, gut issues, digestive issues, mood issues, all of that. And then really your nervous system is just stuck in go. There's no downshift. Like there's no let me shift this to overdrive. Like there's none of that. It's just stuck in go and don't stop. That's it. And so this is a big one. And I implore you, if you have an undefined root center, to spend some time on this and maybe go back and listen to this again and just see what resonates and what patterns are there that you can start to work through. Next, I want to move to the undefined sacral. Now, the undefined sacral, this is about if you are not a sacral being, you are really on this. The risk is being on the borrowed energy burnout. You're borrowing other people's sacral energy. That sacral energy is that generator energy. It's the energy to do. So the energetic patterns that show up for you with an undefined sacral is not knowing when enough is enough, especially because, as I've mentioned before, it's like 65 to 70% of the population are generator types. So we're surrounded by generators, me included. I'm a mani-gen. So we're surrounded by generator energy. So if you're not a sacral being, if you're not a generator type, you're not a sacral being, you're inundated with it. And so there's constant pressure to just keep going and doing because you see everybody else doing it, but that's not how you're supposed to do it. So your energetic patterns is you get caught up in not knowing when enough is enough. When do I hit the pause button or the stop button, or when do I take a rest? When do I, right? Or another one that shows up is you keep going because others have the energy. I see other people having the energy. They're still going. They're still doing, but you're not designed to do it that way. I had a conversation with a friend of mine who was a projector a few weeks ago about this, and she was asking me some questions about working with her energy. And it's really tempting when you are not a sacral being, you're not a generator type, and you see everybody else, well, they're still going, they're still doing, because you start to feel, I was talking about that energy of the undefined root, you're like, well, I kind of feel behind. And if you have an undefined root and an undefined sacral, it's like double whammy of feeling like I'm behind and feeling like, well, they have the energy, right? And then one other pattern I want to call out here is mistaking momentum for alignment. So when you're moving with your sacral energy, I want to say this too. I didn't say this at the beginning. Just because you have a center undefined doesn't mean you don't have energy there. It just means you don't have consistent access to it. A lot of times it is borrowed energy, or you just don't have consistent access to it. Okay, I just want to say that. But a lot of times with an undefined sacral, you're mistaking momentum for alignment and thinking like, I have the momentum. I built the momentum. I can keep going. I can keep doing this. This is what's in alignment for me. But a lot of times it's not. Take manifestors, for example. Manifestors, you have these creative surges, these creative bursts, and then you have these rest phases. So you have kind of these creative doing phases, and then you have these rest phases. Well, if you're getting the momentum, you've got the momentum, but then now your body is telling you like, hey, this is like, we're getting to the end of this creative burst right now. Like it's time to downshift, but you don't. You're like, no, this is an alignment because I have the momentum. This is not how your energy works. Your power comes from these bursts and surges of rest and creativity. So when you're able to see your rest phases as equally important as your doing creative phases, that is what is in alignment for you. It's not about the momentum for you. It's honoring both of those and seeing those as equally as valuable and equally as important. So some examples of how this shows up. Maybe you try to match your partner's pace or your team's pace if you have a team or employees or people you work with. You're exhausted. You're trying to match everybody else's energy. That is exhausting for you. Feeling energized around other people, but then you crash when you're alone. Like, no, I can be around other people all the time, but then when you're done, it's like total crash. This is borrowed energy. Or you're overlooking yourself. You overbook yourself. Not because, one other one here is overbooking yourself just because you can until you can't. It's thinking like, I can keep doing it like this. I can keep going like this. I can keep this pattern, but you can't. Now, a big one here that's going to take the hit. There's a couple things here. Our sacral center is tied to our reproductive organs, and it also has a connection to our adrenals and to how our blood sugar is working because of, we won't get into that. So those are really the big things that are going to take the hit. So your reproductive organs, so think period issues, and I've said this multiple times on the show before, it is no surprise to me that so many women deal with reproductive issues, fertility issues, period issues, things like PCOS and endometriosis and all of these things with our female organs. There's so much going on in our sacral, especially if you have an undefined sacral. So those are a lot of the things that can show up. Blood sugar instability, adrenal exhaustion patterns. Our adrenals, our cortisol, our blood sugar, our estrogen, all of these things are tied together. They all have to work together. And then a lot of times too, it's just this deep fatigue. Think like chronic exhaustion, deep fatigue that sleep doesn't really do much for. Now, moving on to the undefined solar plexus. The solar plexus is our emotional center. I have this one undefined as well. So think this is that center. The pattern is going to be all about emotional absorption, absorbing other people's emotions. So feeling emotions that aren't yours, avoiding conflict and hard conversations to keep the peace, emotional overwhelm without a clear why. Like you just feel overwhelmed, but you're like, why do I feel so overwhelmed? This is too much going on in the solar plexus. So how this might show up is feeling off after conversations, like your emotions have gotten entangled with another person. Maybe it's managing other people's feelings and emotions before your own, right? Bypassing your own and trying to manage everyone else's. And then another thing too, I think this is an important one that I wanted to bring forward. Guilt for wanting space, feeling guilty for wanting space. Because here's the thing, with an undefined solar plexus, you really do need space to absorb is the word I'm going to say. That's not a word. To like discharge from other people's emotions. Like I need space to let go of things that are not mine and reconnect with what is mine. So feeling guilt for wanting that space, this is how this is a huge energy suck, a huge energy leak for you. You're just absorbing other people's crap and then you're not taking the time to let it go. Like, hold on, this isn't mine. Why am I holding on to it? That space is so important. Now, a few ways this is going to show up in minerals and kind of those core levels at your cells, in your cells. First of all, magnesium and calcium dysregulation. So this is going to affect your blood sugar. This is going to affect your hormones. This is the thing with I'll come back to that. A few of the areas that your solar plexus are attached to are a lot of your detox organs. So it's going to affect your body's ability to detox. So think of how this is going to affect your hormones. So hormonal sensitivity, mood swings. Maybe this is things like estrogen dominance. Your body isn't able to detox excess hormones out of your body. This is going to show up when we're looking at energy leaks in the center. Moving on to the spleen, undefined spleen. Now, this is your center for safety and intuition. So when this energy leaks are showing up here, it's kind of this holding on for safety. Now, this one is huge. This is going to be huge from this year of the snake to year of the horse transition. Because some of the patterns that are going to show up here are first difficulty letting go. And a lot of this, it's all fear-based. This is the center for fear. So a lot of this is just fear-based. We have to let go to move into this energy of the year of the horse. The letting go is what the snake was for. So difficulty, this is going to be a huge energy suck for you. Staying in things past their expiration. This is another energetic pattern that's going to, again, there's this fear, the fear of letting go, I think is attached to this. And then the other thing too for this center I find is confusing familiarity with safety. It feels familiar, so it has to be safe. No, that's not true. And this is another reason why sometimes we hold on to things for too long. I mean, think about classic toxic relationships. Why do people stay in them? Because it's familiar, it's comfortable. It doesn't mean it's safe. It's completely toxic. A lot of times they're abusive, mentally or physically, emotionally abusive, but they stay with it because it's familiar. Familiar doesn't mean safe. And so a huge energy leak in this center, this pattern that shows up is confusing familiarity with safety. Can I get out of my comfort zone and recognize that, just because it's familiar doesn't mean it's safe, doesn't mean I need to hold on to it. So this could be examples in real life, could be like staying in routines, relationships, identities. Hey, y'all, we'll get right back to the episode. But first, let me ask you this. You've built a vision that others admire. And you've built something that you're really proud of. But behind the scenes, your body feels like it's lagging behind. It just can't quite catch up to your brilliance and your mission that you have. That late night second wind, the foggy mornings, the hormone shifts, the endless push and forcing. You can't strategize your way out of that. And you already know you don't need more supplements. You don't need another supplement stack. You also don't need another side hustle disguised as self-care, because nobody wants to have their health as a side hustle. This is about recalibrating your entire ecosystem. And that's why I created the Quantum Reset, a premium 3-month high-touch healing experience for visionary women who are ready to feel as powerful in their bodies as they do in their business. Inside, we decode your nervous system, your minerals, your hormones. We read your labs like the sacred text that it is, so we have actual answers. And then we pair that with deep energetic recalibration, subconscious release. We use gene keys, we use human design, and true embodied healing. This isn't about fixing burnout, because that's not what we're doing here. This is about becoming the woman whose body is powerful, whose body is completely electric, whose energy, clarity, radiance finally matches the size of her mission. If you know your success isn't meant to cost you your vitality, and you're ready for a science-backed, spirit-led reset, then the quantum reset is your invitation. So check the link in the show notes or send me a message on Instagram, and let's bring your body back online with your brilliance. Now, let's get back to the show. Hello, that don't feel good, but they feel known, they feel comfortable. This is why it's so hard for people to change. This is why it's so hard for people to step out of their familiar patterns. So this identity one is the one I really want to hone in here, because if we want to step into this new identity that the year of the horse is calling us into, we're going to have to get uncomfortable. We're going to have to really do some deep inner work with ourselves to recognize that, hey, this identity feels safe and comfortable, and because it's known, it's what I've been identifying with for however many years, but it doesn't feel good. I have to admit that to myself. It doesn't feel good. This routine, this relationship, this person, this identity doesn't feel good. It's familiar, it's comfortable, it feels safe because it's comfortable and it's familiar, but it doesn't feel good. This is big. Another one, ignoring intuitive nudges because technically nothing is wrong. So if I'm ignoring my intuitions, it's like, well, why fix it if it ain't broke? That kind of mindset. Oh, Lord, your intuition is like, hello. And then your body's like, nothing's broken. So why do I need to? Your spleen is your intuition. This is where your intuition is coming from, your splenic center. We have to acknowledge, we have to honor those intuitive nudges. And then the last one I want to talk about, this kind of real life example, is holding on to old health patterns, coping mechanisms. Well, this kind of goes into the first one I was talking about, but I wanted to separate these. Health patterns, coping mechanisms, and ways of working that maybe aren't serving this next level of you. Now, maybe there was nothing wrong, necessarily, quote unquote, wrong or bad about how you were doing these old health patterns, the coping mechanisms, the ways of working. But in order for you to step into this next iteration of you, the energy of the horse, right? We have to shed, right? The energy of the snake is shedding it. We have to shed those so that we can step into these new ways of being, these new patterns, these new ways of working that are going to serve us for that next level of ourselves, that next iteration of us. Now, how this shows up in the body, the splenic center is tied to your immune system. So a lot of it is just going to be like immune dysregulation, affecting your immune system. This chronic low-grade stress is going to take a toll on your immune system, which is going to affect how your sleep, your energy, how your hormones are operating, how your body's detoxing physically and emotionally. All of these things are going to be impacted by the spleen. Moving on to the undefined throat. This is, for the undefined throat, it's kind of this, the energy leak here, the patterns, it's kind of this performing to be seen energy. So it might look like feeling pressure to speak or move or not move, but prove or explain. This feeling pressure to do that. Maybe it's talking because you feel like you need to talk to be recognized. Like I need them to notice me. I need to be recognized. I need to be seen as XYZ. So I need to talk to do that. Or kind of the opposite of that is feeling invisible unless you are performing. So it's kind of this performative energy around, I need to make myself heard and seen through my throat center to be recognized, to be seen as whatever. So this might look like you over-explaining things and over-explaining your decisions. Might look like feeling the need to justify your boundaries or justify your rest or justify your decisions. It might look like you speak from pressure and that performative energy instead of true embodiment, and kind of losing that connection to you and your sense of embodiment, and it's all from pressure. Now, the throat center is tied to your thyroid. So thyroid stress patterns are going to show up here in the physical body when all of these energy leaks are showing up from this undefined center. And so here's the other thing. Your thyroid and your adrenals are so closely related, as we've talked about so many times on the show, that it's also going to eventually, if not already, impact your adrenals. It's kind of a chicken or egg thing with the thyroid and the adrenals, but they talk to each other. So when one is impacted, the other is going to be impacted. The other thing is just this complete nervous system, like hypervigilance, kind of come from this visibility pressure, like this pressure to be seen. I got to be seen. I got to be seen. I got to be seen. And so it's this you being kind of in this hypervigilant energy, and your nervous system is just like on edge, because it's like, I got to keep going so I can be seen. I got to push. I got to speak louder. I got to do more. I got to, right? Instead of waiting for the right moment to be seen, to be safe to be seen, right? There's a difference there. Moving on to the undefined heart center, ego center. This one we've talked about so many times, but I want to say it. It's all about proving worth. And so when you have this center undefined, there are going to be a tendency for the patterns of having your self-worth tied to your output, overcommitting to prove just how great you are, how reliable you are, overcommitting. It also shows up as difficulty resting without guilt. And so that was that piece I was talking about before, where the resting thing isn't always tied to guilt. But if you have the undefined ego center, the undefined heart, then that's a lot of times. Now, this can still show up if you have the center defined. Let's not get it twisted here. But it's going to be a deeper energetic, a deeper opportunity for deconditioning when you have it undefined. So what this might look like in real life: saying yes when you want to say no, because you feel like, well, I have to, or I have to show how reliable I am. The people pleasing thing, this is a big thing for the center, this people pleasing, well, I have to, otherwise I'm going to disappoint people, or they're going to get mad, and then I'm not going to be seen as blah, 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 right? Measuring your value by productivity, by your output. This is a big one. Another one is just feeling uneasy, or maybe even feeling unsafe or unworthy when you're not achieving. And then it becomes kind of this constant chase, this constant dopamine hit of the achieving and the success and hitting the milestones and the benchmarks and all that. It's just a dopamine hit because I don't feel safe when I'm not achieving, because I don't feel worthy when I'm not achieving, because all of this is tied to my self-worth. That's how that shows up. Huge energy suck. Now, when you are living out these patterns, when you are stuck in these energetic patterns, your body is in constant overdrive because it's in constant push and force mode. Your adrenals and your thyroid, I would say, would be the first two things to take the hit, because it's constant pushing. It's constant pushing. And that pushing and pressure is adrenal, is its root, and it's adrenal. And so the mineral impact of that is going to be huge. The other thing here, I have a whole episode about calcium shell, which you can go check out. It's from a couple years ago. But this is kind of like calcium shell tendencies, because a lot of times it can end up being kind of this armoring to protect yourself from the perceptions of other people, and having to put on this armor because you're worried about you looking this way or that way, and you're having to prove yourself. So calcium shell tendencies, I find, can also show up from the patterns here. The next one here, I have two more here because I'm going to put kind of the head and the ajna together. The G center is the next one I want to talk about. Now, this one is about your identity and direction. And so with the patterns here are kind of all around direction confusion. So it can look like you kind of shape shifting based on your environment, based on who you're with, your environment. And I find that this can be you could see this one of two ways. Now, sometimes it's an okay thing to kind of be a chameleon, and you can kind of adapt to your environment. But this is not what I'm talking about. This is you completely shifting who you are based on the environment of the people that you're with. Like, you're a totally different person based on your environment of the people that you're with. You lose yourself in those environments. And that's another pattern, is losing yourself in roles. This could be, and this doesn't have to be like work-related things. You lose yourself in your role as a wife or partner. You could lose yourself in your role as a mother. That's a huge one. A huge one. Huge one. You lose your sense of identity because now it's tied up in these little humans that you created. You've lost yourself. It could also look like questioning your direction when you're surrounded by strong personalities and thinking like, oh, well, they're doing this and that, and they're doing right, and kind of losing your own direction and questioning your own direction when you're surrounded, because you're absorbing, you're amplifying other people's energy, especially if there's defined G centers around you. So how this might look in real life: feeling clear when you're alone, but then feeling confused when you're in groups or around other people. That's a big one. And that is a huge sign that you've got a lot of deconditioning there. You are absorbing so much energy. It's a huge energy suck for you. It also might look like changing your desires, what you really want, based on who you're with, and constantly changing your mind about that based on who you're with. It also might look like you consistently saying things like, who am I without this role? And it can go back to what we were talking about with the splenic center of letting go of things and that, no longer serve you kind of thing. Because sometimes when you are not clear, when you don't have that clear sense of direction and self-identity in this G center, and you're absorbing other people's stuff and other people's energy there, your identity is so tied into the role. And now again, it doesn't have to be, it can be work. So maybe it is a work related thing. Maybe it's in your business or your career where you're like, I don't even know who I am without this business. I've tied myself to this business. I've had that moment, and I don't have an undefined G center. My G center is defined, and I've had that moment before I decided that I didn't need to work like 120 hours a week and do everything by myself, and my whole life and identity was tied up into my business, right? But you have those moments. It can look like a career thing. It can also look like the roles I mentioned before, as a partner, as a mom, as a wife, as a, daughter, sister, whatever. Who am I without this role? Caretaker. And not having your identity outside of that part of you. Understanding that this isn't who I am. This is a piece of me. This isn't who I am as a whole. It's just a part of me. It's just a piece of me. Now, when we're looking at patterns, kind of physical things that can show up from this center, these are basically kind of, I find with the G center, just ends up being kind of this low vitality. This just kind of flatness, this energetic flatness or dullness that shows up. You lose your sense of joy and vitality. And this is going to affect everything on a cellular level, every type of mineral that just affects all of it, because it's just kind of this flat, dull energy. And it really is also kind of this instability in your nervous system. It's going to be instability in your hormones, your mood, all of that. So it's affecting so many big functions in the body, huge functions in the body, your nervous system as a whole, when you have this direction confusion, when you don't have that strong sense of self. And so it can look like, blending in to avoid being seen. That's the kind of the pattern that we want to get out of. We want to shed that. This is the snake energy I'm talking about. Shed that to step into this horse energy and standing out, right? I can stand out, and we're not standing out to be seen. That's not why I'm standing out, but I can feel safe being seen. I can stand out and feel safe being seen. That's kind of the opposite of that. The last one I want to talk about here, this last pattern, is for the undefined head or aj. I'm going to put those two together because really for both of these, it's about mental overload. So you could have one defined and the other undefined, and that's fine because it would still apply whether you have an undefined head and or undefined ajna. So for the energetic pattern here, think mental overload. So this might look like trying to answer questions that aren't yours, trying to like this constant pressure to have the answer. It can look like overthinking, overanalyzing everything. Think analysis paralysis, overanalyzing everything. And then it can also look like mental pressure without clarity. So just this constant need to find clarity, but never really finding it. So maybe this shows up for you like over-researching your decisions. Right? You're up in your head about the decisions instead of tuning into your authority about decisions, over-researching, over-analyzing it, second-guessing it. Maybe you're somebody who replays conversations over and over and over and over and over again in your head, like, how could I have done this different? I could have said this different. That's the mental overload. That's another piece that might show up. Might look like needing complete certainty before taking action on something rather than recognizing like, I might not feel completely certain about this, but I'm going to take action anyway. Maybe it looks like difficulty trusting your intuition. Right? Our ajna is connected to the third eye. So if we're disconnected and we have this mental overload, it's kind of this, it's like mental clutter up in your mind, right? And so it's like I have to get through that to get to the back there, to get to where my third eye is. So it's difficulty trusting or even finding that intuitiveness that we get from the third eye. So how this can show up physically in the body, a lot of times brain fog and anxiety, I'd say, are probably the two big pieces. It could be mental anxiety or just like, it could also be body, like overall anxiety in the body. Brain fog patterns for sure though. Because that's kind of what it is for me when I'm thinking about like having that, going back to that difficulty, trusting intuition or finding it. It's like that the fog comes in and it's like, well, I got to get through the fog to get back to that's from that mental overload. The fog comes in and just kind of clouds everything. It's just too much clutter. And sleep disruption. So our ajna is connected to the pineal gland, and pineal gland is responsible for circadian rhythm, if that's what it plays a part in. So sleep disruption is going to be a big physical impact of that. And so the energy of this center, the thing that we can kind of shed in the snake year moving into the year of the horse, is kind of this energy of always watching but never landing. Like not feeling that safety to land because I'm overanalyzing and overthinking all of it. I'm not trusting my intuition when I get the hits, I'm over researching and overthinking everything. So you're always watching, maybe you're always doing the research, but never actually landing. This is the year that you can feel safe to land, because the energy of the horse is now I'm going to take all these. Yes. Okay. I've done the research. I've thought about it so many times, maybe too many times. Now I can run with it. I can say that now I have the clarity. I'm going to shed these patterns of the overthinking and the mental pressure and the trying to answer all of that. And now I can land and I can run and I can use that momentum now. So this is a reframe I want to offer you here. All of that I just talked about, all of these are patterns in your undefined centers. These are the energy leaks that are sucking the life force energy out of you. And these are the patterns that we can recognize now. Maybe you've been working on these. Maybe subconsciously you haven't realized you've been working on these, but you have been. Maybe this is all news to you and this is all new. And you're like, oh, wow, this is something I didn't know I needed to work on, but now I know. Now you know. And this is something now we can bring into this energy of the year of the snake. This is this time for the shedding. These can be things we can shed now. You can be aware. Awareness is first. Awareness is the first thing, the first part. This is the key. You have the awareness now. And now I can support my physical body because I see what areas of my physical body are going to be impacted by this. And now I can take the right action to make the changes. I can let go of this. I don't have to consistently be scanning my emotional terrain for danger. I don't have to stay in my little coil, my snake coil, because it's familiar and that's what's familiar and comfortable. And I think it's safe, but it's really not. I don't have to wait for the right moment to be safe, to be seen. I don't have to stay small and overperform to stay safe. Like I can let go of all of these things. So this is the reframe that changes everything. Recognizing that your undefined centers, they're adaptation, right? This isn't about you seeing any of what we just talked about as a weakness, as I said from the beginning. It's not. It's where we can adapt. It's where we can learn and adapt. And then we can even use this as a superpower. And so during the year of the snake, your body learned to observe before acting and to hold the tension quietly and hold these patterns quietly. It learned to adapt to stay safe, and it showed up as absorbing pressure, carrying emotions, overfunctioning in roles we weren't supposed to overfunction in, and staying in identities that once protected you, but they're no longer serving you, or they're not getting you to the next iteration of yourself. So now we can go from this surviving energy to the embodiment I was talking about. We can go from this, think of a snake that's coiled, from this coiling to this expanding, this expansion. So what helped you survive is not going to be what helps you move with this energy of the year of the horse. The horse energy requires a trust in the body. It requires this forward motion without bracing for impact or bracing for the next shoe to drop. It requires action that doesn't come from urgency. We can let go of the urgency. It moves because it trusts its strength. It trusts itself. And that's what I want for you moving into this new year. So if your nervous system is still kind of coiled, just keep seeing that energy, that image of the imagery of a snake coiled. This is your time to move. Like this is your time to expand and move, uncoil and move. This is where you let yourself embody your human design, and it becomes embodied wisdom. It stops being just information, but it becomes embodied wisdom because you understand how to work with your undefined centers. Because really, the undefined centers are just showing you where your body learned to survive, but now it needs safety to release. And that's how that's what we need to do to step into this energy of the horse. It's to uncoil, restore capacity, let your body feel safe enough to exhale. So the last thing I want to leave you here is about how we can kind of support natural boundaries to help yourself repair and prevent these energetic leaks from happening again. So let's not see boundaries as like this kind of rigid set of rules. Really, it's how you're able to build capacity. So let's see it as that, more of about capacity. So it's where your body feels resourced, it feels regulated, and it trusts itself. So first of all, minerals, this is going to be the first one. Rebuilding natural boundaries, think minerals. A depleted body can't hold boundaries. I want to say that. If your body's depleted, you don't have the wherewithal to hold your boundaries. So our minerals help regulate our stress response, our emotional processing, our energy availability. And so without them, we're going to leak, we're going to overextend ourselves. So first and foremost, prioritizing minerals and supporting yourself from there first. Nervous system safety. This is the next one. A dysregulated nervous system is a recipe for letting go of your boundaries. So your boundaries become possible when your body doesn't feel threatened by rest, and stillness and rest don't feel dangerous. So maybe little practices like grounding yourself, like just how do you provide safety for your body? These are just little things. Like we want to just consistently throughout the day provide safety to your body. Maybe it's just kind of scanning your environment, recognizing what things in your environment make you feel safe. Maybe it's going outside and putting your feet on the ground, or just putting your feet on the floor, like literally grounding your feet on the floor. That feels safe. Maybe it's letting yourself pause and take a breath before responding and not feeling like you have to respond immediately in a conversation or a tough situation. So when your body is resourced, your boundaries just happen naturally. We don't even really have to think about it. I think sometimes we overcomplicate the whole boundary thing. We talk about boundaries and we overcomplicate it. But when you're resourced physically, like I talked about the minerals, and then nervous system energetically, it just kind of happens naturally. You don't really have to try. It just happens. So with the closing here, I want to just walk you through this. So if you are driving or operating anything that requires your full attention, then just listen, or you can come back and do this. But I want you to take a minute and just feel where you are in your body. Just notice your breath, notice the weight of your body, notice the parts of you that have been holding and bracing and maybe clenched or contracted or restricted. And just notice. The year of the snake has asked for honesty. It's asked for listening. It asked for release, sometimes uncomfortable, a lot of times unseen under the surface. But that work matters. And the work you've done so far matters. It's shaped you internally, and it's cleared space in ways that you can't always explain, but you can feel it. Now is a time that the energy begins to move, because the year of the horse carries this different invitation for you, one that lives in your body and not in your mind. This is the energy of motion that comes from trust, from this unwavering trust in yourself and what you've learned so far, the wisdom you've gained so far. It's expression that comes from clarity, the clarity you've gained over the last year and more. It's action that doesn't require urgency to be effective or productive. And so let this season be one that allows your body to participate again, where you feel like your body is allowed to participate again, where you're not all up in your head about all of it. Movement feels like movement and momentum feels like freedom instead of pressure and scarcity and fear, where your intuition leads and your energy follows. So when you think about that, you're kind of still in this space, hopefully. Pay attention to where your body starts to soften, like where you feel things kind of exhale a little bit. Notice in your body when decisions land as a quiet yes instead of this mental overwhelm, this mental debate. All of this embodiment starts with just one step at a time. And I want that to be, maybe that's not your word for the year, maybe it is, you can take that word if you want. But I want that to be a theme at least for you this year, is embodiment, and just seeing it as just one step at a time. Not having to go from here to step 1,000, just one step at a time. And just understanding your body, where your energy has been leaking, where your body is ready to restore, where you can move forward with more capacity and less effort. And that's the work that I guide women through. That's the work that I do. And so as you're listening to this and you're feeling like, yeah, this is what I want to step into in 2026, like this is it, that's the work that I do. And I invite you to reach out if you feel the pull to perhaps an energy reboot session, or even like my deep level work in the quantum reset. Just one of my deeper embodiment containers, because we look at the body, the nervous system, the energetic design, all of it together. So your movement forward in the year of the horse is supported. It's sustainable, it's real, it's for longevity. So let this year, what you're listening to right now, this conversation that you've been a part of, let this be a turning point for you. You've done so much work up to this point. The exhale is available now in this year that you're stepping into. If you want support from me, I'm here. Reach out. There's links in the show notes. You can reach out to me on Instagram, and I'll see you in the next episode.